Hi. All right. So let's talk about our imagination. So, our imagination is responsible for our misery, okay? The stories we tell ourselves. So, first of all, let me just back up and say that over the years, I have become a student of thinking, the brain, the mind. And the one thing that I know for sure, honestly, for myself and for others that I've worked with, the stories we tell ourselves largely determine the results we have in our life. Okay, so I want to go through a couple examples. Actually, I'm going to bring three examples, one of a coaching client I've worked with, one of a student that I worked with way long ago in my student teaching days, and one with a current leader that I'm working with. So I want to highlight, a couple differences here in thinking. So for the first one, my coaching client. So I remember starting to work with her, and honestly, this is about 6 months ago. Okay, so we started working together, and she's in transition. So she's currently in a job that she really doesn't like, and wanting to step into the next biggest thing, right? And so for her, it was, okay, Michelle, I know that you can help me. I know you've helped other people, so I want you to help me. Okay, great. The first two or three calls, honestly, it was all about her coming onto the call saying, yes, this is the job that I want. And by the way, here are all the reasons why I can't have that job. Okay, so many of the reasons were related to things like I'm not in a good area, right? I'm in a rural area. There's not a lot of possibilities. Or another one was, hey, I can't have this job because I've got some family things that are holding me back. Another one was, hey, I'm not from this area. And sometimes when you're from in a rural area, there's the, you got to know somebody phase, right? So long story short, she came with a lot of stories in her mind of why she couldn't have what she said she really wanted. Okay? So what do you think happened with her results? Well, she wasn't getting that job, right? All right, so let me tell you about the student I used to work with. This was when I was doing my student teaching many years ago. And it was with a seventh grade student. And he came to me and he's like, listen, I'm just not good at math. And I said, really? Well, where's the evidence for that, right? So you see, he had been told by, his siblings, his parents, his teachers, anybody he talked about math with, he had been told he was not good at math. So guess what? He wasn't good at math, right? Because the stories that were implanted in him told him his reality, his truth. Okay. Now, a current leader that I'm working with right now, he's given me permission to tell the story, not his name. So he is a CEO. That's all I'm going to tell you, because if I told you more, you'd probably figure out who it is. He's a CEO. He's relatively new to his position. He's got about 500 employees directly under him. And he came to the first call and I said, what do you want to work on? And he said, well, leadership. And I said, well, that's a huge topic. What do you mean on leadership? And he said, Michelle, I'm really lonely. I've been at this job for 6 months. I'm really lonely. I feel like I'm doing it all. It's all on my shoulders and I just don't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, tell me why. And you see all the reasons, right? Everything after because blank, right? The cause, the reasons, the excuses, okay? This is why I'm lonely. I'm lonely because I have to do everything, because, these people don't get it, on and on and on. See, he's telling himself a story that is causing the current results, okay? So let me tell you the switch for each one of these people. All right, so the coaching client who, hey, I can't find a job. This is, a bad area, that kind of thing. Guess what? She is in the process of going through and creating her own job. So she understands, hey, these are the things I want to do. And she has a list of like 5 or 6 things. And I said, do you have to have an employer to pay you for those things? And she said, well, I want to make money. And I said, okay, but does it have to be an already formed job, or is that something that you can turn into a business? And so, as we've been working through that with her, you know what? She's got the solid foundation for an awesome business plan that's actually going to allow her to step out and help more people than she's ever had the opportunity to do before. Okay? Different story, right? Okay, now my student, my 7th grade student with math, so the one thing that I knew with him, he didn't need any more math instruction, because when you have a story that tells you that you're limited in some way, especially when it comes to knowledge, you don't need more knowledge. You need to change the story. And so I was very particular with him. He was coming to me for extra practice because his mom said, oh, you definitely need a tutor because you're not good at math, right? So we worked on him and his self-image and having him change the story. So every time he would come in and say, oh, I'm not good at this, I said, stop it. We're not going to talk like that. And then, when he did something good, I said, see, you are good at math. And yeah, it took a little bit of time to kind of, boost him up a little bit. But over time, I noticed that he got a little bit better, right? And as that story was changing inside him, he realized, you know what? There's certain parts of math that I really like. He found out he was excellent at geometry, not so good at algebra. Kind of different parts of your brain, totally get it. And so I said, let's stick with the geometry, right? So his story changed, his results changed. Right? Now, that leader that I've been working with that said, oh my gosh, it's really lonely at the top, right? I said, let's change that narrative a little bit. How can it be less lonely? Now, this is one of those points where, every now and then I have to step out of my coaching role and step into my mentoring role where I tell the person something, right? I try not to do that a lot. Honestly, try to only do that on these podcasts and videos, although I still try to get you guys to think a lot more for yourself rather than just listen to me, okay? But this was one of those times I stepped in and I said, okay, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. How can you include people? So we talked about the idea of the inner circle, right? Creating a group of people that were there to support him, but he could also support. We talked about the idea of delegation, because let's face it, you got to learn the skill of delegation. Okay, fall in love with that, right? So over time, what were we doing? We were not only focusing on the skills that he needed in leadership, we were focusing on his leadership story. Because the story he tells about himself and his leadership will become his reality. Okay? So what's the difference between the first 3 examples and the second? The only difference is the story. I really want you to understand that, okay? And I want you to become intimately acquainted with your own stories. Okay? There's a story behind every success. There's a story behind every failure. And listen, here's the one thing that I really want you to understand. Sometimes you need to focus less on outside sources and focus more on you. Okay? So for example, reading books, obviously I'm a book reader. My goodness, this isn't even, scratching the surface of the books that I have. I'm a book reader. You can read books. You can listen to podcasts, right? You can, watch videos of speakers. You can take in all of this information, right? Which is not bad, but if you don't know your own story, how helpful is somebody else's story, right? So you really got to get to know you. So if your stories determine your life, first of all, there's a couple things you can think of. Number one, you can look at the current results you have and backtrack and say, what story have I been telling myself about that? Right? But you can also move forward. You can say, okay, what do I want as a result in my life? What story do I need to tell myself about myself to get there? Okay? So this playing around with ideas of what you're telling yourself about yourself is really important. And quite frankly, the story you tell yourself, that's all about self-image, right? If you've been following my work for any length of time, the last few weeks we've been talking heavily about self-image because how you see yourself determines your life. So if you'd like to know more about the philosophies behind self-image and really putting them into practice for you, we are hosting a live teaching call on Tuesday, July 14th from 7 to 8:30 in the evening, Eastern Time. I know we have a lot of listeners from around the world, Eastern Time. And yes, we will record it. So if there's something going on, I totally get it. We'll record it. We'll probably put it on the podcast the next day. But it's going to be a really great time for everybody that comes and listens to the live recording. I'm going to have a special gift for you, an ebook that I've created of all kinds of cool activities that can get you thinking. Okay, so I will put all the information in the description or the comments, and feel free to join us. We would love to have you there. It's going to be a really good night of entertainment, stories, and lots of information and inspiration. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today, guys. Get to know your own story, okay? Get to know your own story. It's really important. Awesome. With that, I release you into the wild. Go forth and prosper. Have an amazing day. We'll catch you next time. All right. Bye-bye.